Today we're going to take a look at the 2025 governor's prediction for the month of August. And it's been 3 months since the last one, but with only 2 states up for election, there's not going to be a whole lot of changes. It's the same 2 states, nothing's changed there. It's New Jersey and Virginia. Democrats currently hold New Jersey, Republicans in Virginia, but with a likely national environment that's going to favor the party out of power in the White House, the Dems stand to do a little bit better here. At this point, we're sure of the nominees, but we're not sure of the exact national environment yet for Election Day. We might not get a great sense of that until after Labor Day, or maybe even in October. But let's start here in Virginia. Now, to help get an idea, let's take a look at the current polling. Now, polling is something, but it's definitely not everything. And the more recent polls here are on the top. And the ones on the bottom from last year, those are totally irrelevant right now. But at the top, we've got Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat, leading Winsome Sears, the Republican. Spanberger hits 50% in the most recent one here from Wick. She also gets 52 in this one from Harris X when those supporting other candidates are pushed. But then she's also down here at 43 from Roanoke, and then the rest are mostly in the mid, occasionally in the high 40s. Now as for Sears, she tops out here at about 40%. Some of them, like in the Roanoke poll, she's down there at 26. In the other Roanoke, she's down at 24. But her actual best poll is this Harris X one where she hits 48. So once you even all that out, she's going to be somewhere in the mid, maybe the high 30s. No matter how you slice it, Spanberger is ahead. So if the election were held today, it's easy to say Spanberger would win. And even projecting ahead to Election Day, it's hard to bet against Spanberger. But to help get a little bit better idea, let's go back to 2021 and take a look at the polling in that race. So here it is. We've got Terry McAuliffe on the left, Glenn Youngkin on the right. At the time, McAuliffe was a well-known former governor. Glenn Youngkin was still getting his name out there. But the other key difference here is Biden was in the White House at the time, and his popularity was on the decline. Either way, let's take a look at these polls from August of that year. It's pretty clear Terry McAuliffe was in the lead in every one of them. He also was maybe topping out at just about 50%, but a lot of these he's in the low up to the high 40s. Glenn Youngkin, he's down in the high 30s up to the mid 40s. At that point, it'd be easy to say McAuliffe would win. Things didn't really start to change until we got into September. Then Youngkin was in the lead in a couple, but those seemed like outliers. Even all the way through September, McAuliffe maintained that lead. He again barely got over 50%. Ultimately, it looked like McAuliffe was at least going to be able to hang on, but the momentum started to change once we got past debates and closer to the election, when people actually started to pay attention. Then, right up until the election, that's when it started to even up, and it went back and forth. McAuliffe led some, then Youngkin led some. It was kind of a coin flip right on Election Day, but the momentum did seem to be with Youngkin. Both of the candidates were around the high 40s with a small chunk of undecideds. Ultimately, Youngkin did prevail, and he clinched a moderate upset, but McAuliffe was completely in the driver's seat until the final few weeks. Now, if we glance at Polymarket and take a look at where people are putting their money, here Spanberger is at 93 cents. Sears is at just 6. That is extremely overwhelming. I think it should be a little bit lower than that for Spanberger, probably in the low to mid 80s. However, it's clear that after considering all the factors, Spanberger is the favorite, Sears is the underdog. So if we go back to the polls for this election, they could stay like this all the way through November. Or they could change a little bit, but still not have an impact on the overall result. Or they could change moderately or more, kind of like they did 4 years earlier. A lot of people get caught up in what the most recent polls are, but I try to tell everybody, wait until at least September, if not October. If Spanberger was ahead here, 53, 54% in most of these polls, then I think she's almost certain to win and could even crack 10 points. But if we go back to the map right now, it is going to go to Spanberger. That's the easy call. In my previous ratings, I had it just at a borderline lean likely rating. That's going to be right at the 5-point margin line. I do want to see what happens with debates. I do want to see what happens with Sears' campaign. I know she shook up some of her staff. But Spanberger, I think, is a decent candidate for the Dems, and with Trump in the White House, I'm willing to give Spanberger about another quarter point. That's going to take this rating just over into likely territory. So right now the margin for me is about 5 1/4. It doesn't mean Sears can't make some magic happen in the end. Even if she does narrow it, she could still lose by 2 or 3 points. But it could go in the other direction and everything breaks for Spanberger, and she does crack maybe 10, even 11 points. It's not very likely, but it's not out of the question. For now though, this this is my rating for Virginia. Now let's talk about the next state, New Jersey. Let's do the same thing. Let's take a look at the current polling. There's not a ton of them, but the nominees are Mikey Sherrill for the Dems, Jack Ciattarelli for the GOP. Ciattarelli is making his third run at it. The things going for Sherrill are similar to Spanberger. She just seems like a decent candidate. She's got a military background, she's got experience politically, probably good suburban appeal in a relatively blue state. Now the case for Ciattarelli is, he's been through this before, he knows what he's doing. He made it way closer in 21 against Phil Murphy, and he got close to winning it in an upset. Plus, in the last presidential election, New Jersey shifted pretty far to the right. I think if New Jersey is going to get redder in the future, it might take a couple of cycles. It could go back and forth. Or maybe it does take a step toward the right, but ultimately it doesn't go further than that. Now, if we look at these polls, we do have a recent one here from Fairleigh Dickinson. Sherrill is ahead by 8, 45 to 37, 15% undecided. That's a lot. In all the other polls, Sherrill is leading. Some of them she's into the 50s. But these are not convincing numbers for Sherrill just yet. And with current two-term governor Phil Murphy on his way out, there is a case to be made that voters in this state might want a little bit of change. Keep in mind, this is the state that elected Chris Christie twice. But again, Trump is in the White House. Dems are likely to be fairly energized. I'm going to wait to see what happens after debates. But again, it's going to be hard to bet against Sherrill. There's just a lot more Democrats here, and the wind is going to be at the back of Sherrill. And Ciattarelli running 3 times in a row, that could be viewed as an asset or a liability. Some voters might want some change, but Ciattarelli just seems to keep popping up every 4 years. Now let's look at the polling from 2021. So remember, Phil Murphy won by just over 3 points. The aggregate polls here had him up 7.8. And if we look at the polling in August, and in every one of these polls, Phil Murphy led. The polling in August was kind of all over the place. This one from Fabrizio did have Murphy only up 2 points, but it was 43 to 41. In this Monmouth poll, who is actually done conducting polls in this state, they had Murphy up 51 to 38. That's a big gap. Even in their later poll, they had Murphy up 50 to 39. Everybody thought Murphy was going to win this, at least by a likely margin, if not safe. There wasn't even a ton of undecideds at the end here. We're talking 4 and 5 points. But these pollsters just misread the electorate. They overestimated Murphy by 2 or 3, and they underestimated Ciattarelli by another 2 or 3. It wasn't enough for him to win it, but it made Murphy sweat it out. Now, if we glance here at the poly market, here Sherrill is at 90%, Ciattarelli 11. This one I think should be in the high 70s, maybe into the low 80s. That's at least how I look at it. I definitely think Sherrill has the clear advantage, but 90% tells me Ciattarelli has almost no chance, and I think it's higher than that. So if we go back to the map, we've got to give it a rating. Well, unlike Virginia, I gave Spanberger about a 1/4 point boost. I'm not ready to make any changes here yet in New Jersey. It's almost the same as Virginia, but it's going to fall just on the other side of the line. Probably about 4 3/4 up to 5%. That's going to be enough to give this state a lean rating for the Dems. So that's it. That's what I've got. Dems in the driver's seat with all things considered. Both sides do seem to have decent candidates. If Biden was in the White House, then these would be pure toss-ups. GOP could even have an advantage. However, as we've seen in the polling, you could only put so much weight on it. It was totally weak in New Jersey in 21. And in Virginia, the polling in August, even September, had really minimal bearing on the final result. So it's tough to have a lot of confidence in an actual final margin. But I would definitely not bet against the Dems here, at least not yet. Given it's only about 3 months away now, we'll follow it a little bit more closely. But for now, that's the prediction. So let me know in the comments. How does your map look for New Jersey and Virginia for 2025? I'm guessing it's not going to be too far away from this prediction. But let me know about the polling and the markets and which other factors you're taking a look at down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.